Tomorrow is Christmas Eve, and we don't have any Christmas trees. I have some Christmas lights, and well, I have some lights, put it that way. And we have lots of lights. We haven't put them out. Last year we had them all over the place. I was thinking you can really judge the condition of a faith by how its main holy day is being celebrated. I mean, just the English use of the word holy day became a holiday. So, I mean, if someone doesn't tell you, the word holy is gone. There's no sense of holiness to it. If you see Christmas, it's very rare that you can pick up any sense of holiness. I remember when, even when we first went to Canada, in Hungary, I don't really remember very much of any spirituality tagged on to Mikuláš and things like that. Scare kids, that's all it's about. But when I came to Canada, this day and sort of Christmas Eve, there were actually groups of people going around the street. And when we first got there, we were in a pretty poor area of town. It wasn't a criminal area, but it was a poor area. But still, there were groups going around caroling, which means that they were, singing, and they were singing songs like that, different hymns, and it was very nice. As we were talking the other day, the one nice thing about Christian observances is this chorus, very well rehearsed, orchestrated chorus, very, very beautiful. So it sounds very, very heavenly when they're singing, and it can be very, very inspiring. It's a lot to do with awe and reverence. Our kirtans are more sort of spontaneous and don't necessarily invoke that same type of awe and reverence. But in any case, it can be very beautiful. I can't say much for the organ that they use. Why, of all the instruments, they pick a squeaky thing like that to play, and then stick that into all of the churches. Why not a piano or something that sounds nice? This doesn't. Anyway, and that was quite common. You'd even if you go downtown or even in the stores, there would be more and more songs like that. There were all these carols that are being sung, or hymns, another name for carols. Then, over a certain period of time, the emphasis went more from Christ to Santa Claus. And then, you know, people start singing Jingle Bells, and Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. Now what do you become if that's what you think of at the time of death? Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. So, no wonder there's a lot of reindeer in Lapland. And of course the whole idea that now we're going to praise or we're going to glorify the birth of our guru or savior, or even, you know, some Christians misinterpret that it's God who's appearing rather than the Son of God. But in any case, it completely goes from there until today. There's even Rudolph's out the window. So it's just all I want for Christmas is you. So these type of songs, we're getting back to love songs. Same love songs that they sing all year round, but now it's, you know, just connected to Christmas. And of course, it's become a real commercial time. Commercial in the sense that just in this month of December, 40–50% of the income in stores, businesses, and so on of the year comes in this 1 month. Hard to turn that down, and therefore that starts to become promoted. And then, I don't know, when was Black Friday, and so this whole idea of making a lot of money. And of course people spend a lot of money, and they buy all kinds of presents that have no relevance to their spiritual development. In fact, it's just the opposite. So now what's happened to Christmas, literally being stolen. Now, in one sense, it's not that, you know, in churches they don't celebrate it, or maybe some certain sects are very serious in terms of their celebration. But the tendency is this is what happens when a religion also gets out into the public, when it spreads. So the spreading of a religion has some spiritual benefit for those people, but also later on it converts into being dragged down by those people who don't really practice spiritual life very seriously. So obviously not just Christianity, but other religions have used religion as a very good political tool. It's a, you know, that we're going to save, especially in Africa. So the missionaries, and then from the missionaries went all of the commercial, and in order to maintain commercial military expansion, all in the name of saving these fallen people. They may have had a different culture, and lived in a very simple or primitive way, but on the other hand, they also had a very old culture, very, very old culture. Here in India, of course, that became the, saving the Hindus and converting them to Christianity in certain parts of India. I haven't traveled very much in India, but I remember once when first time I was in South India, and I can't remember where, and was just transiting for a few hours, so I got out, got in a taxi, told them to drive me around. I always talk to taxi drivers. I asked, "What's your name?" He said, "John." I said, "What?" He said, "The name is John." I said, "How can your name be John?" He said, "What's my name?" I said, "My name's Śivarāma." He was as bewildered as I was. So yes, it was Christian, the Portuguese, and of course, who was supposed to Peter? He came to India with John. It's Francis. One of the apostles came to the south. So religion really has a tendency that even when the spreading, and that tends to be a real motivator, just like we also motivated to spread Krishna consciousness. We take advantage of this Christmas season where people are more generous and more inclined to give than at other times to purchase Srila Prabhupada's books. And we spread Krishna consciousness, but everybody being a little religious doesn't necessarily look like a good thing from the overall perspective. We tend to lose what it is, just like Vaishnavism or Sanatana Dharma spread without a social structure to back it up, spread all over India. What's the result? It doesn't look very good. It's called Hinduism. So, get on the plane and Jai Hind, but what's Hinduism? You got, 1.4 billion different versions of what it is, as many people as are in the country. Therefore, Srila Prabhupada so much emphasized Varṇāśrama, because unless you have a social structure, a political structure that's designed to elevate people with that particular religion. Now, in the very beginning, Constantine, who actually sort of Christianized the Roman Empire, it was, of course, they didn't maintain real standards. A good example of standards is, for instance, Maharaj Birhamvir. And he is in northern Bengal, sort of a kingdom. And when Srinivasacharya transformed him into a devotee, then he made Krishna consciousness, Vaishnavism, the religion of the kingdom. Okay, but he didn't just do that, but he also had spies going around, and it was compulsory for everybody to chant 64 rounds a day. And if you didn't chant 64 rounds a day, pack your bags and get out of the kingdom. So when you have that type of social structure, when you have that type of leadership, where, of course, we'd be happy if everybody chanted 16 rounds, what to speak of 64 rounds. You know, it's hard, it's rare that devotees even, you know, if on Varṇāśrama they chant 64 rounds, it's like a big thing. But to the farmer in the, you know, field, he's out there at 6:30 in the morning, but he has to chant 64 rounds. And if he doesn't, there's serious consequences. His whole family sort of moved on. And if you have that Ekadasi book, then there's many stories of kings, and they enforce Ekadasi, generally dry fast throughout the whole kingdom. And not just Ekadasi, but then Dwadasi as well. So Dwadasi, you only drink milk after. And it's the Trayodasi that you actually start eating grains again. So compulsory in a whole kingdom. Or that meat eating is banned, doesn't exist. Or if you eat meat, then you're an outcast. You're out of the social structure. You don't fit in society. In other words, you don't fit into any part of a city. You go live in the forest. So there, the pig eaters and others, they can live in their own villages, but in the civilized part of society, it doesn't work. So that's why spreading a religion without a social structure to actually enforce certain principles, ultimately it gives something, but not very much. And, you know, when your house is burning down, throwing teaspoons of water isn't going to do very much. Then you need a lot, and you need fast to make it happen. So that's why Srila Prabhupada emphasizes that 50% of my mission has not been realized. I have not finished. And that 50%, what is that? Social structure. And it's not very easy. Now, for instance, in Krishna consciousness, we have not established Varṇāśrama. In fact, we haven't even agreed on what Varṇāśrama is. We have, in one sense, since day one, established ashramas. And we have ashram rules and certain ashram standards, and that works, but it works so long as you're under the supervision or management of a temple structure, where you're supervised, obligated. If you don't, you're out. But once you're beyond the walls of the temple, then, for instance, we have the counselor system, which first Swami Maharaj established. But unless that counselor system is very strong, and there's a very strong social peer pressure for devotees, it's just Kali Yuga. So there's only one way, everybody here goes, and that's down. And that's the natural tendency. Going up, it's like, you know, spending your whole life running up a down escalator. You know, kids do that, you know, you run up, but you know, this is an escalator and it just keeps going. So it's a really exhausting thing. But we read right in the beginning of Kali Yuga what Maharaj Parikshit wanted to do when Kali wanted to harm a cow or bull, just kill him. If you listen to Prabhupada's tapes, I don't know how many of you, who listens to Prabhupada's tapes like regularly? One person. Well, you don't know much of Krishna consciousness. Maybe you know something of philosophy, but how to put it in practice, you have to listen to Prabhupada's tapes. And you hear some very, very strong things. And Prabhupada will, respond to things, kill him. Prabhupada talks about thieves that in Kashmir, at least was one of the last places, it probably doesn't exist now, it must have existed in Srila Prabhupada's boyhood, that a thief is caught, they cut off his hands. So you got somebody walking around with only one hand, you know this guy is a thief. So nowadays, you don't cut people's hands off, and there's no killing. But that's the punishment. When that becomes the punishment, people stop eating meat very quickly. Or if they want to do it, all right, you do it like this, but there's no such thing as butcher shops on the high street. So you have to do yajna, and once again, you're an outcast. You don't really belong in society. Or alcohol consumption, or a Brahmin who touches alcohol or drinks alcohol, he loses his Brahmin status. Or intoxication. So spreading Krishna consciousness, yes, we should, but establishing a social structure. I was talking about ISKCON, but then the regulating Varnas, in other words, regulating Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, Brahmanas, Shudras, especially establishing who's there. We very readily accept, all right, I'm a brahmachari, now I'm a grihastha, vanaprastha, we're sort of finding our way, and sannyasi, so we have these, but who's a Shudra, who's a Vaishya, and what are the rules that go along with each of these, and how does everything integrate to fit into a samsiddhi haritoshana, to fit into a social structure where the goal is to actually people live in a way that whoever you are, you're pleasing Hari. Yat karoshi, yadasnashi, yad juhoshi, tat kurusha mad arpanam. This principle of mad arpanam. So to dedicate everything, to give the results of one's activities to Krishna. Sometimes devotees have a real misconstrued idea of what, I'm working in my workplace, and if I think about Krishna, then that means I'm offering the results of my work. No. You're offering the results of your work when you give 50% of your income. Or at least some percent, say 10%. So these things, unless these are there, and unless spiritual standards are there, and the enforcement of spiritual standards. So, Srila Prabhupada, it's also recorded on tape. Prabhupada's walking. He says, yes, in the future we'll ask people, do you chant Hare Krishna? No, bang, bang. And people chant Hare Krishna really fast. Oh, you can't force them. You can't so force them. Look at Islam. It's all based on force. spreads more than any other religion in the world. It has certain social cohesion and standards. It's all based on force. Of course, the whole idea is to inspire. And it's forced because it's so tamasic. But if something is transcendental, so what is Krishna says? Imam Raja Shayo Vidhu. So Imam Raja, that the leaders are Rajarshis, they are kings. And they and they're saints. Raja, Rishi. Kings who are saints. Leaders who are saints. And that's, if sometime in the future, devotees became empowered enough to actually go take office in politics, all you have to do is turn around and ask people, do you eat meat? Do you drink wine? Do you cheat on your wife? And they're out on all counts. He says, why are you a saint? Are you a perfect example of what human society is meant to be? Now, for instance, in India, you have something. You have a prime minister who's a vegetarian. He's extremely strict. He's certainly a real proponent. You can see they're trying to reestablish certain principles. And the unfortunate thing is they're living in a democracy. Varṇāśrama does not work in a democracy. Democracy is not a viable system because the majority of people are low caste. Low caste people will always vote for sense gratification. And that's what democracy is about. So it doesn't really do anything. Monarchy, if it's Raja Rishi, if it's a king. And ultimately, someone who is a Raja Rishi, even in a democracy, they should just declare emergency, get rid of all the elected politicians, and put in only saints, which may mean that you have a very small political spectrum, because you're going to find very few people, but in due course of time, that is what will happen. So, I'm just talking about that in terms of spreading Krishna consciousness, that we see that when you... I went 30 years ago, maybe more, probably more like 40 years ago. I went to the Regent's Park Mosque, and it's Regent's Park is central London, and there's a mosque there. And the mosque is there because when the British were in Saudi, then there was an agreement that they could get oil, and they could drill for oil as long as they could put a mosque in central London. Regent's Park Mosque. Now, you don't have a Regent's Park Hare Krishna temple. Not that, Prabhupada wanted it. I don't necessarily know that many people would go to it. But anyway, I went there, and they took us around. And it's interesting. I said, what's your philosophy? He says, we don't have a philosophy. This is just a faith. I said, okay. Then the next question, I said, well, how do you maintain the place? He said, well, look, the whole dome is gold plated. He says, we just had to replate the dome. I said, so where'd you get the money? He says, we just went around to all of the Islamic embassies in London. So we went to the Saudi embassy and this embassy and that embassy, and they just write out a check. And so governments who maintain certain standards, but obviously they have to be the example of that. So hark the herald angels sing, glory to the newborn King. We used to sing so many carols in school. Yeah. So anyway, just a thought and a meditation that ultimately spreading Krishna consciousness has to spread in tandem with Varṇāśrama establishing in ISKCON, so that we have a model for how it works. And then Srila Prabhupada had different ideas. He wanted what's it called? Manipur. He wanted to go to Manipur and turn it into a Vaishnava state. Vaishnavism was the sort of national religion there, even at that time. So people wore tilak, and everybody's child is called Govinda. So their whole culture is based on that. Prabhupada also wanted to do the same because in Manipur, that's where Arjun's son, Prabhuvahan, was. So Prabhupada said, yes, we will. They were talking about the soldiers, that all the soldiers at that time, Tamal Krishna Maharaj said that when it flew there to Manipur, then the soldiers, like at the airport and elsewhere, they all had tilak. So Prabhupada, yes, we will teach the soldiers to march, and they will sing Nittai Gaur Radhe Sham Jai Arjun Prabhu Vahan, and that will be their mantra. So Fiji, Prabhupada also had his eyes on Fiji to try and make that, because it was run, the whole country was run by Hindus. So somehow or another, these were Srila Prabhupada's plans. Otherwise, spreading without a social and political structure to maintain it ultimately means that you've got Christmas and Christianity for what it is today, 2,000 years. It's still there in name, but thou shalt not kill, find a priest who doesn't kill. Hare Krishna. Jai Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Shri Radha Damodar ki jai, Jai Nitai Gaur Premanandi.